Let's talk today about the cost of being right. That's the subject of today's podcast, video, whatever we're calling this. This is my first one that I'm posting, so if you don't know me already, my name is Coach Melissa, and I am a connection coach. Talk about that later, but we're just going to talk about today's subject. Today I want to talk to you about the cost of being right. Got a little story to talk about with you with that, and we'll get right into it. The reason I chose this subject is because I feel like it is something that could be evergreen as far as a topic goes. I feel like that we don't really realize the cost of being right and what that is. So let's get into that. I was married years ago. My first marriage when I was in my 20s. I got married when I was 21. Had my first child when I was 23. And I'm the oldest of four kids, and being the oldest, you kind of naturally are in charge. So I was in charge often. I'm a year older than my brother and 5 years older than my sisters that are twins. I helped my mom out with the family a lot, doing, babysitting, things like that, as you do as an older child, as the oldest child. And so I learned about debate. I learned about how to win an argument at an early age, which was a unfortunate circumstance for my mom because I often would win arguments with her. And I found out through her that you can't prove your parent wrong. You can't prove your mom wrong, especially in public. It was considered disrespectful. Even if she really was wrong and you're right, but to embarrass them or humiliate them in public was, you're just not, you don't do that. So I did learn the hard way about that, about proving your parent wrong, especially your mom, just how disrespectful that is. And I get that, I understand that. As I became an older parent, as I parented my own children, I found that my oldest child had the need to prove me wrong. He wanted to be right. He was like, I just want to be right. And why can't you let me be right? As a teenager, he would really, really fight for that. And I'm understanding that more and more now. But at the time, I felt like, well, if you're right, you're right. So go ahead, be right. And I'm not going to say you're right when I feel like you're wrong. And I found out later that it's not really about being right and wrong. It's being truthful is what I was really after. I just was after the truth. So if what you're telling me is true, and I'm believing something that's false, I'm saying something that's false, I'm believing something that is false, I like to know that. I want to know that. So I found that that's what I was really after, was the truth. So not necessarily that I was right, but, I did like being right. So I had a really good memory, which was how I would win a lot of arguments. I would say, remember you said this. And you're right, I did say that. Ooh, and then they said, you're right, I did say that. Oh, those words, you're right. They were intoxicating to hear that. So I did seek that out, to hear that again, you're right. But I didn't realize that the other person, when they're saying you're right, they feel like they're wrong. I don't like that. I don't like that you have to be wrong for someone else to be right, or one person has to be wrong for someone else to be right. The truth is the truth. So that's how I feel about that today. But it did cost me a lot in my earlier years. So I want to talk about that. I used to win almost every argument with my husband when I was first married, when I was in my 20s. And it was kind of a power struggle, you're trying to figure out your role in a relationship. And I was watching an Oprah. I wasn't really watching. I remember this really well. This was so many years ago. I'm 57 now. I was in my 20s when this happened. So you know that it stuck with me that long. I was listening to an Oprah Winfrey episode while I was unloading or loading. I was doing the dishes. I don't know if I was hand washing. I just remember doing the dishes. And I heard this therapist, psychologist, counselor person talking about the cost of being right. It got my attention. I knew that I was on the verge of getting a divorce. I knew that already at this point. I knew that our relationship had deteriorated, and I played a major role in that, and this is part of it. So as I'm doing the dishes and listening to this person talk, he said, when you're right, and you know you're right, and you prove the other person wrong by your being right, what does that cost the other person? I'd never thought about that. I'd never considered the cost it was that you proving the other person wrong, essentially, because you're right, what it cost them. And he explained it in a way that really struck me. I mean, it was like a slap in the face. And what he had said was, how did you make the other person feel in your being right and proving them wrong? And I could just picture how I was making my husband feel. And I realized at that moment, which I knew the damage had already been done, but what the damage was I had made him smaller and smaller and smaller still, to where he was probably feeling like a shell of a human. Like he wasn't feeling masculine anymore. He wasn't feeling appreciated. He wasn't feeling like he had any kind of say, because whatever he was going to say was probably going to be wrong. He was probably going to make wrong decisions financially. Just questioning himself all the time, I can imagine. And I felt horrible. I mean, I felt so bad that I did talk to him about that. And I knew that the damage had been done, but I did learn a huge lesson that day. And I'm not saying that forever I was humble and let everybody else be right from that point forward. That's not how I am. That's not how I'm built. Ask anyone that knows me. I still love to be right, but I don't love it at the cost of someone else's ego, at someone else's feeling less, as at someone else's expense. So it's one of those where you choose your battles kind of thing. If I know I'm right, that's enough. And do I have to make sure the other person knows I'm right? Is it worth it to make them feel smaller or less than, and then I feel like they are aware that I was right? I don't feel like that's important. But I do still strongly believe in the truth. So because I believe in the truth, I'm not going to concede and say, you're right, if it's a lie. So what I choose to do now is to either change the subject, or or I will say, look, you're right about this, except for this little part, except for this part. Or I will ask them to, why do you feel that way? Why do you believe that? Why do you take that position? Can you give me something that I can kind of chew on for a minute and digest, and perhaps, you can swing me around to your point of view. I'm very open to that because I like to learn from other people. I like to learn why they think the way they do. There's been several times, because I'm not afraid of confrontation, there's been several times when I will challenge someone and say, prove to me, show me why you feel that way. And I'm ready to stand for my position. Here's why I feel the way I do. Perhaps you know something I don't. Perhaps you've seen something I haven't seen. Perhaps you can show it to me from another angle where I'm not wrong. I just never thought about it that way. That's happened a lot, where, oh, I see what you're saying. I never thought about it that way. So then that person isn't wrong. I'm not wrong. It's just that I never thought about it from that angle. So we can talk about it. We can learn from each other. And I just love that. I love that so much that you taught me something. And I'm looking for that in our discussions. I'm hoping for that because I know I'm not right about everything. I know I'm right about a lot of things. I've been right about a lot of things, but I've also been wrong about a lot of things. A lot of things. And I love learning. And in learning, you learn that you might have been wrong about something, or you might have thought about it in a way that's no longer valid. And that happens a lot. Like doctors have been proven to be wrong in their medical practices, in the things that they thought. Think about lobotomies and things like that. They thought that that's how you treated people. A lot of women had to have lobotomies because they acted hormonally. And, that's been a thing. And there's been a lot of things like that where people have been proven to be wrong when they were proven right for a long time. And then over time, that has turned out to be not correct. So you have to kind of keep an open mind. And I do love to have an open mind. I do enjoy that. I try that very hard. But I had a discussion with my mom recently where she said to me, well, you love to be right. You love to prove other people wrong. And that really struck me. And that's why I thought about this discussion, about this topic, because I don't feel that way anymore, but I did at one time. And my family members still think that about me. They haven't learned that I've changed over time, and I don't want to prove them wrong or want to be right all the time. I love to have experienced them being right. And if that means I was wrong about something, that's okay too. I don't love that part, right? I don't love that part. But I am open to it. I am willing to let go of my own ego and stuff like that and say, maybe they're right about this. Maybe I've thought about it wrong. And that's happened. And like I said, I do enjoy that. More people have to get to know that about me because they remember how I used to be, and they don't realize that I've adapted over time and have learned that I don't have to be right about everything. No, not everyone has to know that I'm right. I can just know that I'm right about stuff and be okay with that. There are times with my sisters where I will still take satisfaction in, no, you're wrong about that. This is what's really going on. Or, I'll Google it and say, look, I showed you that I told you that this is this. I still do that with my sisters, admittedly so. And I think that's because we have that sister banter thing that goes on, But one very valuable lesson I've learned in my relationship with my husband, and I've just been married a couple of years now to my husband. It'll be a couple of years in June. And one of the things that I've learned, and he's not a right fighter at all. He doesn't even... he doesn't fight to be right. But I have learned this lesson, which I'm conveying to you, and you probably already know this, but I'm just going to iterate it anyway. And that is, there are times that you shouldn't be afraid to talk to somebody about a subject that might be a delicate subject, because it can open your mind to something, to a challenge, to a thing. Challenge your own thoughts. I welcome it. I think you should too. We should be open for discussion. And there shouldn't be a subject that we can't talk about. There should be nothing that we can't talk about. We can say, listen, I'm sensitive about this right now. Can we talk about this later? Because I'm feeling kind of sensitive about this subject right now. I'd like to think about it, chew on it a little while. I say chew on it a lot. And we can revisit it. Let's table it for later. We can do that, where if a subject is too sensitive and you know that you're being emotional and you're not going to have rational thinking, you can say, let's talk about this later. But you still want to talk about it. You still stay open. Maybe you weren't aware that you were having sensitive feelings about this. Sometimes it happens in the moment. Also, there might be some times when you're just talking about stuff and you feel passionate about your position and they feel passionate about their position, and you're going back and forth. And the one thing I'm going to say is just don't call each other names. That's the worst you can do. You're an idiot, F you, all this stuff. That's childish. Let's not do that, okay? Let's just not do that. Let's not call each other names or question someone's intelligence or anything like that. Let's keep that. Let's make the ground rules where we're not going to do that, okay? Let's agree that that's just childish. And I want to challenge you to make those rules for yourself when you do have a discussion with someone, that you don't, an argument, a debate, whatever you want to call it, when you communicate, don't call each other names. Just take that out of your thing. Take that off of whatever you're doing with anyone else. When you're driving down the road, stop calling that other person an idiot. It's just ridiculous. So, anyway, enough about that rant. That's something I feel very strongly about. But what you can do, what I suggest you do, what I do, let me just tell you what I do. What I do now, and not every time, trust me, not every time, but what I try to do is, if we're having a passionate, open discussion about something, and I feel one way and they feel one way, and we just know that neither one of us is going to budge on this, and we can say, look, let's just agree to disagree. And that's okay. You can agree to disagree, still be friends, still go to dinner, still make love to your partner, whatever. You can still have respect and love and trust for the other person, even though you might not agree on everything. So I give you that think about the high cost of being right. You don't have to be right all the time. If you know you're right, that could be enough. You don't have to prove the other person wrong for you to prove yourself to be right. Let's let the other person go away still feeling good, and you can go away still feeling good, still having love and respect and trust for each other, and keep an open mind. Because maybe you're not right. Maybe you're wrong. Food for thought. So I hope to have more discussions like this. Please push the the thumbs up button if you like it. Make a comment. I'm going to put more videos up. I'm a connection coach, because the reason I chose that title, connection coach, is because I have made it my mission now to help others to make meaningful connections. That doesn't mean that I'm trying to make you find your soulmate. I'm trying to make you find the one person that's most crucial in your life. No, I'm trying to help others make meaningful connections, because we're on our phones all the time now. I can't tell you how many times I see people just on their phones. Even when you're face to face with someone, they're on their phone when they're at dinner. And I was in a doctor's office, and everyone was on their phone in the waiting room. You could walk by somebody, you wouldn't even know that you know that person, because no one's making eye contact. And, I really want us to get back to being connected. I feel like we need community. We need to get back in touch with our neighbors. We need to get back in touch with our coworkers. By that I mean like a regular conversation. We need to get back in touch with our family members. We need to relate to one another. We need to reach out. We need to talk to the person at the grocery store. We need to get back to the mom and pop businesses and getting to know the owner of the businesses in your area. Back to networking, back to how we used to do things before the internet took over. I know I'm using the internet to do this as part of it, but also I'm starting my own community groups. I've started a meet and greet group, and I'm part of my garden club. We have a neighborhood association. I'm getting involved in the community more and more. I'm doing this because I feel like we are becoming a society of isolation, where we're isolating each other because we disagree on so many things, and we're being separated by politics and all this different ideology. And I really would like for us to get back to being human to human again. So if you'd like more of that, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and I'm going to be putting up more videos. Don't even know what I'm going to call this yet. I think it's going to be Melissa Makes a Mess or something about messiness, because one of the things that I was advised on when putting together these videos is start off messy. And so that's what I'm doing. Welcome to my mess. Hope to see you next time. Peace.